It is my honor to welcome to Sovereign Path someone whose path I crossed as an executive recruiter and as somebody that's doing incredible work as a purpose driven leader. Lindsay Baker, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Rory. It's so great to see you again.
It is great to see you again. And I want to delve into your career. There's so much to unpack. I think so many learnings people can have because I met you a little bit earlier in your career, and you've done so much since we first connected. Let's first start with what are you doing now in your capacity running your own consulting firm?
I can't believe I think we met over 6 years ago. Time goes by quickly. But 3 years ago, I started my own consulting firm where my North Star is focused on mission based organizations and helping them address social inequities, whether that's hunger, healthcare, education. My consulting firm, I'm based in Arizona, but I work across the United States with nonprofits really to help them achieve their missions.
And I remember us talking many years ago. We crossed paths on a search, and we talked about what was next for you. And I remember us having a conversation about you being a COO at some point in your career. Tell me about how that came to be, how you went from more of a individual contributor and then working as a programs strategist and director to the COO role. What do you know now that you didn't know before you got into the role?
Yeah. I just want to thank you because I feel like maybe you saw it in me before I had that confidence to get there. I remember you were like, if it's
Uh-huh.
not this COO role, you're going to be that somewhere else. So I just want to say thank you for that. I was really lucky. I started my career first through the Congressional Hunger Center doing their fellowship, domestic anti hunger. And I worked at Feeding America for 10 years and really had an amazing path there to grow. And as you said, from a coordinator to a manager to a director. But for me, moving to a COO role allowed me to bring different elements that I had learned at Feeding America and through my volunteer and other activities to an organization in my hometown of Tucson, Arizona. And I think being a COO is really exciting because you get to support a CEO and help he or she or they achieve their vision and mission for the organization, but really get to work in different elements. I got to work on marketing. I was at a
Mhm.
foundation and a federation that merged, but it really allowed me to bring some of my qualities of being a generalist in the nonprofit sector to help the organization go through a transition, which was both a merger and happened to be during COVID as well.
I talked to a COO today, one of our clients, and she said, I feel like I'm the glue in the organization,
Um,
but I would never want to be a CEO. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I relate to that. Interestingly, I wanted to be a CEO or an executive director, but after serving as a COO, I'm not sure I want to be, which is weird. And I think for me, being okay with that like pivot, I think as a
Uh-huh.
COO, you're really holding a lot. You're working with the CEO, you're working with the board, but you're also working with all the directors or vice presidents, depending on how your organization's structured, and modeling for the team. But you're also working in the community as well. So you're seen as a leader, you're seen as an ambassador for that organization. And I think it's really on you to pull those pieces together with the CEO, with the board, with the team, with the community. And I can relate to the your client saying that she felt like she was the glue at our organization.
What was it about the CEO role that you saw up close that made you maybe rethink it, or maybe you never wanted to be a CEO? It's one of my mantras in career advice I give to people is that you may have a dream about something, but then you might get close to it and it comes into technicolor detail. And you're like, I don't want to do that. My mother, for years, decades, wanted to be a college president. She
Mhm.
got to be provost. Who do you call to be a college president? Provosts. And she said, I don't want to deal with athletics and fundraising. I want to be the sort of academic leader of the organization. What did you see about the CEO role that made you think, maybe not for me, or maybe not for me right now?
Yeah, I think it is a combination. One of it is you never get to like turn off the clock, right? It is a
Hmm.
24-hour a day job. And to be fair, being a COO role is a very high demand role as well. We can talk about it later, but as you know, I'm a young cancer survivor as well. And while I was COO, 6 months into the job, I was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer. And that, of course, changed my perspective on how I approach not just work, but life. And I think wanting to have a little bit more balance. I also think for me, very achievement oriented, that, it made sense to go
Mhm.
from, a fellow to coordinator to manager, up, up, up. So, of course, if you're COO, the next step is CEO. And I think I got to the point where I was like, I can have an impact whether I'm a chief strategy officer, COO, chief program officer, and I don't have to be the top of the chain to make influence, have an impact, and learn from the people around me.
I think that is amazing that you're not letting ego
Mhm.
guide you in your career, but you're letting sort of orientation and leadership competencies guide you. And I see a lot of people, they want to finish the job of their
Mhm.
dream and get to be CEO, even if they know in their gut, that's probably not the right job for me.
Yeah. And we all have ego, right? Like I definitely
Hmm.
I know always, title mattered to me, right? I wanted to grow. I wanted to be seen as a leader, especially as a young female leader. And I think when I got to that COO spot, I was like, oh, like I'm good here, right? Or could I pivot, whether now it's consulting or again, I mentioned, strategy programs. There's other elements of being in the nonprofit sector that I love and I feel I can really bring a lot of value.
There might be people watching this that are on their way to being COOs. What do you know now about the role that you wish you might have known on your way to getting the title and the functional leadership position? And what were the key sort of leadership experiences that shaped you into being a great COO?
Yeah, I think going into it, and this is really for any job, especially at the C suite, is just to really understand the dynamics of the organization.
Mm,
And not even referring to my COO role, but other roles I've held, sometimes when I've seen like what I call an orange flag in an interview, turned out to be a red
mm,
flag in real life. So I always tell people if you have that gut sense, like pay attention to it. I think as I've gotten older and had more experience, I've done a better job trusting my intuition. But I do think there's some moments looking back in past job decisions where I should have paid attention more in the beginning. I think as COO, it's so critical to really understand and build a strong working relationship with your CEO or executive director, and also understanding where the board comes in and also the team. I think really having clear lines between you and the CEO is really critical. How do you help them achieve their goals and the strategies set by the organization and set by the board? And really being transparent. What do you need to thrive?
mm,
What do they need to thrive? Right. I think whenever
mhm.
I was reporting to someone, I felt like my job was to make them look incredible and not just look, but be incredible. How do you be that support? How do you step in? How do you maybe see their blind spots? Um, I think some of those things help me in my leadership role, especially when serving on executive teams.
And as a consultant in the nonprofit sector is under tremendous pressure politically, financially. What makes the role of COO now critical to the survival and the thriving of nonprofit organizations in a way that it might not have met maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah. The nonprofit sector is experiencing so much turmoil, right? It is so challenging, whether I'm working with clients at the national or working globally or clients here in my hometown of Tucson. As you mentioned, financially, it is so challenging because so many people have lost government funding, but now they're all coming to the
Mhm.
community foundations, to individual donors, to local corporations, and organizations that never sought that funding before is now competing for already tight funding. So I think that's one piece. And as a COO, again, you need to help manage and operate the day to day of the organization. And it's
Mm,
likely there's probably been staff cuts, right? So, everyone, if you're at a nonprofit, you're already wearing multiple hats, but now you might be wearing even more, right? And a COO, I think, can really also help with the prioritization. There's so many things we want to do in the nonprofit sector, right? And I think it's really critical to understand what is mission critical, what is strategically aligned, and how do you prioritize. One thing I used to do with both my CEO, but also now when I work with clients and a lot of executive directors and C suite leaders, is I'll put the priorities green, yellow, red. So I'd come to you and say,
mm.
Rory, I heard this is what we want to do in the organization, and you as the leader. Here's how I've mapped out what is green and we have to do, what is yellow, like nice to do, and what we can't do right now. And by doing that, I allow you to look at the list and say, like, you know what, Lindsay, this red thing actually I want to do or we need to do, or this green thing that you prioritize, we don't need to do right now. So it allows the executive to have say and direction, but also allows you to see the scope of what's happening. Because I think mission creep and taking on too much is such a common challenge I see
Mm,
in the sector. And right now, we really need to stay core to our mission, our strategy, and really focus. Another thing I would add too is while doing that, supporting the team. Hopefully you have, HR, people and culture supporting. It's hard, right? It's hard to be a
mhm.
leader right now. It's hard to be a person right now. And we need to support our team and recognize that they're dealing at home, in their communities, family with a lot, and how to show that balance and respect so that you're uplifting your team in a time that can be really dark.
I'm glad you brought up the team component. When you look back on the most effective staff reporting up to you, what were they like? What did they do maybe that other staff didn't do as well?
Yeah. I've been so blessed to have some incredible direct reports. Some I still talk to almost on a daily basis.
Mhm.
A few things just thinking about different staff members that have really been shining stars in my career is their willingness to learn, right? Just really
Mm.
open-minded, ask good questions, but also took initiative. I think people that were able to see, like, this is where Lindsay needs help, or this is a weakness of Lindsay, and I can step up and help here. Those that also really thought about the team and not just their role. I think those are the folks that you see that you're like, oh, you're going to be, in this next level. I love a young woman that I hired as an assistant when I was at Feeding America is now a vice president there. And I'm so
Mm.
proud of her. But I think it was her ability to take initiative and not just think about her body of work, but to think about how her work fit in the entire team and the ecosystem that we were trying to work on at that point was programs. Another direct report, a skill that I did not have and still am working on to develop at the time, was she took feedback like a champ. She just was
Mm.
so gracious, listened. She could get really tough feedback from me, from our CEO, from others, and she just listened and held it, didn't push back, didn't get defensive. And I learned from her. I'm like, that's how you take feedback. That's how you get
Okay.
constructive guidance. Um, yeah, and I just think that ability to collaborate, right? I think really trying to support one another, step in, also step back, right? I think sometimes when you have
Mm.
really high performers, it's easy for them to almost over deliver or kind of overshadow other team members. So, folks that can kind of see that and give space for other people at the table as well.
You are now an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur. You're running your own consulting firm. And there are a lot of nonprofit leaders, a lot of professionals who worked in government that are looking for jobs. And some of them are willingly going into consulting. Some of them, the job search has taken a long time and they're sort of backing into consulting. What advice would you give to people starting their consulting firm thinking, I am not an entrepreneur. I am not a business developer. I am not the carnival barker that's going to get clients, but I'm a really great subject matter expert at these things. How do they translate that into a thriving consulting business?
Yeah. I remember when we talked a week or so ago, you mentioned like, oh, I see you as an entrepreneur, and I don't see myself that way. So maybe
Right.
this is you seeing something before I do. But I hear what you're saying as far as like building a business. And there are so many elements, right? Working on my accounting, working on how to this like impact my taxes, doing business development. I think when you're starting, really thinking like, why are you going into consulting and what's that unique value add that you can bring to your clients? Also,
Mhm.
like, what else is going on in the space and how do you maybe bring something different? I think understanding there's so many different moving pieces. I love that. I'm someone, even in my nonprofit consulting, I do fundraising, I do strategy, I do operation, I've done HR. I get joy out of that. Other people really like to pick a lane. I know some amazing fundraising
Mhm.
consultants or amazing strategists, and that's all they do. So I think understanding, do you want to go wide or do you want to go deep and why? I think also thinking about what are the relationships you already have. I have an amazing business coach who's really been guiding me, and this idea that your best clients are your current clients. Something I'm really proud of that kind
Mhm.
of happened organically is every single one of my clients has renewed at least once, And some have been clients
Mm,
since I started.
mhm,
And that's
mhm,
been fabulous because
mhm.
we've gotten to really develop and expand our relationship and figuring out where can I help at different points and different junctures within the organization.
That is so astute, and that's like a decade of wisdom and not a decade of experience because you're relatively new to this, only a few years. When I think about the twice I've started consulting firms, one was a tech company that morphed into a consulting firm. The sort of OG wisdom I have is that a great company is a good idea, incredibly well executed by great people with great systems, financial and technology systems. Most people think that they have a great idea, and then they think the idea is going to get them through sloppy systems and sort of mediocre people. And the people part I found to be the thing that I get better and better at. Luckily, at our firm, we have a very low turnover rate, and I'm guessing I'm a decent boss, but I think it's also because we've selected people that have ethics and work ethic, and we sort of fill in the technical expertise. I mean, there are a couple of people that have had great project management expertise, great recruiting expertise, but most people didn't. They were taught how to be executive recruiters in our model, but great ethics, great work ethic, and the technical skill came later. A lot of times we think we'll hire great technical skills and we'll teach ethics, we'll teach work ethic, and that doesn't happen. Has that been your experience in terms of the people you work with and maybe the folks you collaborate with in your consulting firm?
Absolutely. I think finding people that you connect with kind of from the values and mission base comes first. Because
Mhm,
if you're not going to get there, I think you're going to have a lot of missing pieces. And to your point, even on turnover, I think the fact that you have low turnover is incredible and a testament to you and I'm sure the team around you. Because I think when people are leaving very quickly at organizations, that's another red flag I see. Right now, I've been doing a little bit more collaboration. I recently partnered with an evaluator based out of Atlanta that I'd worked with in a previous job. I love evaluation, I love data, but that is not my expertise. So I was really
mhm,
excited. I hired her firm. She's also a consultant, and they did an evaluation for one of my strategic planning clients. And that was a great example where we had already worked together. We knew that we got along. We knew that we had complementary skills, but she brought something different. But then I was kind of able to explain where our client was, their mission. It was an organization, it was a museum that she hadn't worked with a museum before, but she brought her expertise and a PhD in evaluation and was able to do a phenomenal job. So, something I'm learning
mhm,
and would love to hear if you have any advice for me, Rory, is how to build. Right now, I don't have any full time staff, and I'm not sure I want to in the future.
mhm.
But I do need to bring on to continue to expand because I am at capacity for work with what I can do with myself and the few people I do contract with. How have you built consulting firms or found those teams and collaborators? And any advice you have for me and other listeners?
Yes, the first consulting firm I had, we started off with 4 W-2 full-time staff. We had no clients. So we were literally paying out money every month, hoping we would get clients. The lesson I learned with Protege is make people consultants first, full-time staff later.
Mm.
Right? Get the supply of contracts and client relationships and build the team as you go. Don't recruit the team and then find the business later. The business may never come. You may be forced to find business you don't want, as opposed to finding the kind of clients you want to serve and then building a team to service that. So I think 1099 consultants first, full-time staff later.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's definitely the path I'm on. So I'm glad to hear that that's something you would suggest as well.
I also think people want to test drive you
Yeah.
and your company. They may not want to go full in because they may not know what the model is going to be, how it's going to turn out. We started off with it was 4 of us, 3 others and me for the first 3 years, and then it became 11 of us. Now it's 7 of us. So you will shape shift as the market demands, but being nimble and being able to bring people on, create clusters of excellence inside the organization based on work styles, geography, subject matter expertise has also been something we've done, even with staff that remain consultant 1099 staff.
That's great.
Okay, as we wrap up, what advice would you give to someone looking at a career like you've had, whether it's being a COO of a nonprofit and or being a consultant? Sort of what did you wish you knew maybe 10 years ago that you find to be really true right now?
I think whatever your vision is today, I think knowing it's probably going to look different in a year, 2 years, 5 years. For me, I've had both my cancer journey, but also a lot of loss. I lost my dad and my stepmom when I
Mm,
was 30, and my life changed. And I think with that, and this applies to my professional life too, is be open to pivots, right? I think we're in a very different climate than we were a year ago or 5 years ago. And I didn't predict, and I imagine a lot of people couldn't have predicted where we are today. So I think being open to the change and not seeing it as a bad thing, getting curious. Change is hard. I don't do great with change. I feel like I've been forced to do better with change and
mm,
strive to be
uh-huh.
resilient. But I think in my career, if I would have been a little bit more gentle when things didn't go the way I thought they should or the way I wanted them to be like, okay, this is happening for a reason. I might not know why, but even in the hardest moments of my career, those are some of the moments I've learned the most. So I think really being open to those pivots, learning from the people around you, and letting your career kind of be that expression more of a jungle gym rather than a ladder. I think it's really
Mm.
easy, as I mentioned, when you're achievement oriented, that you have to go, go, go. But I've seen some people make beautiful lateral moves and learn and expand their scope, get new mentors, and really blossom in that way. So I think really being open to what's in front of you, but also embracing the change that's inevitably going to happen.
All right, I have an appendix to the last question.
Okay.
If there's a nonprofit leader listening to this, what should they call you about? When should they call you? And how can they reach you?
Yeah. Thank you for that. I love working with diverse nonprofits. It like makes my heart full. So I always love partnering with executive leadership teams. So whether you're the CEO, the COO, you might be head of HR, but if you need help on different elements of your nonprofit, it might be strategy, it might be operations, it might be governance. I always tell people sometimes I do big projects, so a big strategic plan, a big fundraising plan. But some people bring me in to lead a team retreat or board retreats I love doing. So if you're someone that you're like, oh my goodness, I really need help on a project right now. We can't hire another staff, or we just, lost a staff member. They just moved on to another organization. And I really need someone to come in and pitch it with me and be a thought partner and a collaborator, would love to connect. The best way to reach out to me is via email. I'm at lrbakerconsulting@gmail.com. And also on LinkedIn, I'm happy to connect that way too. But yeah, I love connecting with nonprofits and I always learn from my clients. And I feel like that's where it's really symbiotic and I get to grow with them as well.
Lindsay Baker, COO turned entrepreneur extraordinaire. Thank you for stopping by Sovereign Path and sharing your wisdom with our listeners.
Absolutely. Great to see you again, Rory.